Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Roast. I'm Phil Carroll.
And I'm Kevin Hornsby.
Sunday the 3rd of December. Positively Baltic out there, Kev, as you can attest to being in the UK. What's been happening this week? All okay in Scousland?
All okay in Scousland. We won 4-0 last night. I arrived at the train station on Thursday night and realised that we were playing. So I was a bit upset with myself.
Did you run to the cop, or did you watch it on your phone?
Afraid not. Didn't do either. I just watched the score and realised we won 4-0 and all was...
Apparently it was a good game. They were just reviewing it, said it was a good performance.
Yep. We've qualified as group leaders straight into the knockout 16 stage, and yeah, I was actually met two guys from Dublin there in the train station waiting for the taxis, and we were chuckling at how Manchester United had thrown away a good lead yesterday. So
yeah, well, they're good at that at the moment anyway. But Garnacho's goal was certainly a positive to talk about.
Yeah, I saw something on Facebook and it said, and because Garnacho has scored the only overhead kick goal ever scored in history, that Manchester United are now first in the Premier League. They're going to win the Champions League, and he should win all Ballon d'Ors, past, present, and future. So, yeah, it was a fantastic goal, but it's one goal at the end of the day.
Let's have a look at some of the news that's dominated this week. We've obviously had the Israel-Palestine ceasefire, so the release of many hostages and a pause in the fighting in the form of a temporary ceasefire. First it was 4 days, then it was extended to 6, and obviously that it looks like they have resumed the IDF operations in Gaza there today from this morning. So, I mean, it's great to see people being, a lot of the hostages, especially the youngsters. I mean, obviously every life is valuable, but especially when you see like the babies and the toddlers and, the 9-year-olds meeting their dads, their fathers and mothers for a long, I think the 9-year-old said she felt she'd been away for a year, but it had been, I think it was roughly about 6 weeks, wasn't it, in captivity? So what do you make of that?
Yeah, no, it's obviously been good that both the Palestinian guys have been released and also the Israeli people who were taken as hostages. Yeah, I wish it had been able to carry on and become more substantial in terms of get them all released and subsequently some sort of agreement. But let's hope this is a short situation so that they can come to the table again and start discussing the hostages and then start to discuss an actual solution. But it seems a long, long way away, but who knows?
Yeah. We've had a groundbreaking green fuel flight landing in New York. It was the first transatlantic flight by an airliner powered by pure sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF. Flew from London to New York yesterday. Virgin Atlantic operated the flight between Heathrow and JFK Airport with a Boeing 787 Dreamliner. Virgin founder Richard Branson, the Transport Secretary Mark Harper, and Virgin Atlantic Chief Executive Shay Rice were among the passengers on the flight, which did not carry fare-paying passengers. Airlines are pinning their hopes on SAF to slash emissions and as they try to decarbonise flying. However, many people question how realistic it is to aim to reduce emissions on a large scale. Experts say there is nowhere near enough used cooking oil to meet the demand from aviation, as it is already used widely by cars, and they argue that the UK does not have enough agricultural land to increase production of biofuels. What do you make of this? I mean, it's certainly a step forward, isn't it? This
yes. So what's happening? The plane's taking off and we're getting fried chips out the back of it, or what?
Exactly. I mean, it's like the classic ones, isn't it? You see the red diesel being running tractors, and you can see the cars, or you can smell the cars that run on the burnt chip fat, basically, can't you? They come past you, and you get that real deep fried, Kentucky Fried Chicken smell coming out the back of them.
No, it's good, but I don't think it's a long-term solution, to be honest. As you said, there's not enough of it.
Yeah.
So if there's not enough of it, then I mean, how is it going to be sustainable? So
I think they'll be looking at also the synthetic fuels as well, haven't they? Certainly for cars that Porsche are developing as well. But again, it's not so much they can run it, or they can run the cars on it, but it's how much they can scale up, because at the moment it takes many weeks to produce gallons and gallons of this stuff. So it's all about scaling up. Once they hone the process of actually producing it, then they can roll it out. But it's just
and it makes me think also about BSFA in terms of the meats and stuff, isn't it? It's a similar situation, isn't it? If they can scale it up in an economic way in any of these new technologies, then it's a game changer. It's gonna be work. It's gonna work big style.
So there was also, I mean, I don't know if you saw this, but the dangers of mining highlighted this week with the tragic news from South Africa. Impala Platinum said operations at the Rustenburg mining complex were halted after 11 workers died and 75 were injured in what the CEO said was the darkest day in the company's history. A lift system bringing workers to the surface at the end of their shifts crashed to the bottom of a 1,000-metre deep shaft. The firm said the lift had tested safe prior to use, and an investigation is underway to discover the cause. So just highlighting that these operations, even though you think they're safe, testing can be done, things like this can happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, mining's a dangerous business. You know, people die in the pursuit of getting this stuff out. No matter what safety we put in place, it's, you know, accidents happen, obviously, because we don't know how the Earth's going to move and how things are going to change. So yeah, it's tragic, absolutely tragic. So let's hope the people who are injured recover, and it's very sad, obviously, for them and the families who died.
Yeah,
no
tragedy. What about the Elgin marbles? I think I sent you the article on this. Did you see the dispute between Britain and Greece escalated with the cancellation of meeting between Rishi Sunak and the Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis? Greece seeks the return of the Parthenon sculptures removed in the 1800s and now in the British Museum. The issue, which could have implications for global discussions and bilateral relations, remains unresolved, and the situation is further complicated by legal barriers preventing the British Museum from disposing of items in its collection and concerns about setting a precedent for other restitution claims.
You try and say that name again?
Kyriakos Mitsotakis. It's a good one, isn't it?
You make it sound like he's a Japanese person.
Kyriakos Mitsotakis.
I think he's a Greek person, but yeah. Well, you sent me the article from the Greek newspaper.
Oh my word! I mean, it's venomous, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was not nice, obviously. But you know, we stole them. Let's be honest. Like, should we send them back? Probably should. But the reality is, we don't want to talk about that, do we? There's many things also from many other places, Egypt especially.
Okay, so that aside, do you think he handled it the right way? Do you think Rishi was right in just cancelling the meeting while the Greek Prime Minister was effectively in town for this business meeting, this big business meeting there?
Do I think he handled it? Well, based on the outcome of what's happened afterwards, quite obviously not. You know, would it have been better for him to meet him and basically admonish him personally? I think this would have been a better option, obviously, but somebody's advised him, hasn't he? And he's obviously absolutely decided we're not having any of this. I mean, we often blame a lot of these things on the politicians themselves, but it's not really the politicians in a lot of cases who make these decisions. It's the private secretaries and who are basically, no, we're not standing for that.
It was. I think this came from a comment that the Greek minister made on, I think it was the Laura Kunsberg show on last Sunday, and he just made a flippant comment about them, and that was enough. Rishi threw his toys out the pram, and it was like, you can't talk. We've already talked about this, off camera or whatever, and it was like you brought it up, and the mere fact he even mentioned them was enough for Rishi to cancel. So. Yeah, I mean, as you say, I think that the point is it does set a precedent, doesn't it, for other restitution claims, and once you give that one back, what happens next? Is because pretty much I suppose a bit like the Egyptians, the pharaohs. You know what I mean? It's like, where do you draw the line on these things?
Yeah, well, the British Museum would empty overnight, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
We wouldn't have anything left. And maybe the American the American museums would also do the same thing, because a lot of the things have been bought and then gifted on death and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I don't know. I understand the country's saying it, and there isn't a solution. And ultimately, based on what else is going on in the world, it's not really that important.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to this week's guests, or at least plethora of guests. Let's explain what we've been up to this week, and obviously one of the main reasons why you're over. We attended the Mines and Money Resourcing Tomorrow conference in Islington on Thursday at the beautiful Business Design Centre, and have a listen to some of the conversations we had and interesting people we met.
We have just arrived at the Business Design Centre in Islington for the Resourcing Tomorrow Mines and Money conference. So what are your first thoughts? Look at this beautiful building. It's a iron structured, kind of almost like an Art Deco design, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks like it was an old train station. It certainly looks like it anyway. But yeah, and there is many different companies here, so we look forward to investigating this and hopefully give you a few short snippets of what's going on here, so we can all get a grasp of where we're at.
So here we are with George Pirie, Minister of Mines, Government of Ontario. Welcome, George. How's things?
Very good. It's been a great conference so far.
Okay.
We're involved with one of the companies who is based in Ontario in the project that is in Zigzag, which I think is just north of Thunder Bay, in all sorts of different things like lithium. So give us an idea of what is available in Ontario for the miners.
Well, you've got it right there.
Yeah.
Take a look at that map. Take a look at the projects. Take a look at the operating mines, and it shows you what we've got here in Ontario, from northwestern Ontario to northeastern Ontario. A number of precious metals, base metals, critical minerals, everything from lithium to, and there's a few things here that aren't even mentioned on that map, including rare earths. We don't have niobium on that map. We've got niobium south of James Bay, and we've got niobium over in the Chapleau area as well. We've got lithium discoveries that are just south of Highway 11 in the Hearst area. They're not there. We've got graphite and potash on the other side of Hearst. They're not on that map. So yeah, it's what we're seeing here now is really a rapid increase in exploration activity associated with critical minerals. Timmins is Ontario is a well-established mining jurisdiction, but historically, no one was looking for lithium, no one was looking for rare earths, and they are now. Our critical mineral strategy was issued in about 20 months ago. It's got six pillars, and one of them is the Ontario Junior Exploration Program. It's been very successful. We're already the number one exploration jurisdiction in Canada. So I think you've seen the rapid development of these projects due to the urgency associated with decarbonization and the desire to decarbonize our economy.
And from the point of view of economics in terms of Ontario, how important is the mining sector to the tax revenues and to the money that's coming into the place?
The economic impact with mining right now is about $14 billion, and that's the value of the minerals that are produced, and it's about $16 billion in relation to the Ontario economy. So it's a significant driver, and it's only going to increase in relation to the overall value of Ontario's economy.
There's a huge economic sort of circle around it as well, in terms of the people who are coming to work in Ontario, and also the fact that there obviously is some tax revenues coming in from these projects. How, in terms of advantages, does Ontario stack up against other places in terms of being able to give people incentives to come and mine in Ontario?
Yeah, well, we've got the first part of your observation. There's about 77,000 people that are employed in the mining sector. The average income in the mining sector in Ontario is about $2,000 a week. So these individuals are very, very well paid in the mining industry. And certainly Ontario would be one of the top handful of jurisdictions for mining worldwide.
Very good. Well, we wish you luck, and I hope everything continues to expand.
George, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, so a company that you may have seen recently is IMC Exploration. They've moved from around about the penny mark up to the sort of 3 pence, and the current market cap's 20 million. We're joined by Eamon O'Brien, Executive Chairman of IMC Exploration. Welcome, Eamon. How's things?
Well, everything is going very well. As you know, we got approval for the reverse takeover, to acquire the Carroll mine on the 1st of November. And as you said there, the share price has quintupled. But even at that, we had to show a valuation of in excess of 30 million. Between our asset now in Armenia and our asset in Ireland, we would have valuation should be really north of 50 million easily. And it's only the start. I came on board in 2018 with the objective of moving the listing from the next exchange onto the standard market, which we achieved in 2019. And the objective there was to use our valuable listing on the London market to acquire assets. And the first move we made was to acquire the Carroll mine, which was a very high-profile mine. The United Nations, UNEP and UDP did an assessment of it back in 2015 in a big report, basically looking at the economic impact of the mine and the social impact. So it was quite fortunate that of all the 480 metals mines that were in Armenia that they chose that one, and they estimated that profitability of 30 million would be achievable, and that was when gold was $1,400 an ounce and they were selling concentrate. We're going to have our own eco-leaching extraction factory, which will be the first of its kind in that area. It'll be built tied in with China National Geographic Geological and Mining Corporation, and we have a contract to build that particular extraction plant, starting with around 150,000 tonnes processing a year, up to, on a phased basis, up to 500,000 tonnes a year. So much so that people have been contacting us and saying, would we process for them if we have capacity, which is another money earner for us as well. Also, we're looking at 2 more copper mines and another gold mine, and these are mines that will have, according to their owners, stated mineral resource. So we'll only be looking at properties where there's the likelihood of future mining potential.
And what sort of gold figures are we talking about in Armenia?
Well, at the moment you're talking about 250,000 ounces in the current Carroll mine. We've made an application to extend the area because our JORC report pointed out and assessment pointed out that the veins run beyond our existing mining license. We did have the exploration license for 21 hectares, so we'll now we're seeking to extend that.
And what sort of grams per tonne are we talking about?
Well, you know, at 250,000 in the Carroll as it is at the moment, obviously when we extend it, you know, really our consultant geologists will have to work out what that could be. But, you know, you would say on a conservative basis, maybe 3 times at least what we have. We're looking at another gold prospect that has 9.5 tonnes of gold. And the big play will be in Armenia will be copper, because we believe that copper is totally undervalued. It's also one of our plays in Ireland where we'll be remediating the Avoca piles and tailings. That could be a 200 million project, but also that's a VMS type deposit, so will be southwest of that existing deposit. There's always the possibility that there's more little fingers of the VMS in that area, so that's one area that's highly prospective. Also, when I got on board, we did have zinc licenses, but I decided we should concentrate on what we had in Leinster, and in Leinster we have the Gold Mines River licenses. In fact, Arkell also down there.
We know another company with Leinster who've got lithium down there.
Yeah, that'd be true.
Very prevalent.
And Arkell actually, in their announcement, was it yesterday with John Teeling, mentioned that they were beside our potential gold deposit. Trinity College are very excited. They've come on board with us. The mother lode, as they say, hasn't been found in Leinster yet, and they're of the opinion that our licenses are probably the most prospective for the gold, because interestingly in the river deposit, you know, gold was found. I think it was Brighton University were over there, and they found, you know, grains of gold in the same spot in the river. But the thing about it was the angularity of the grains was different. There were 3 different types of angularity, which suggested that the river must be cutting through 3 different sources of gold. So that's highly prospective.
There's been a lot of leprechauns working in Ireland by the looks of things.
Well, actually, would you believe it?
Gold.
Would you believe it that Ptolemy, who did a map of Europe back in whenever it was the ADs, you know, the early ADs, had put Avoca on the map. They were even looking for gold in Ireland in the rivers back, you know, at the turn of the millennium, the first millennium. So we're also going to Canada in 7th of December. We're going to Canada. We're looking at 3 prospects there, where a particular contact that we know, or David actually know as well, you know, produces about 6,000 ounces of gold a year, and but he's a private player. So as I would say to him, you know, your gold in the bottom of a bucket, if you net 2 million and it's in the bottom of a bucket, it's still only worth 2 million. But if it's part of a listed company, and this guy has great experience, and of course we would only do a deal that would be on the basis of delivery, you know, so because it's an alluvial type deposit, so you don't have the same, you know, exactness about what the resource might be. But again, if we do a deal on the basis of delivery, and then that's another prospect.
Yeah, very good.
So the focus is on getting cash-producing assets and building the company. As I said, in a former life, I co-founded a payments processing company, and we built that up to a level. It was backed by Tony Ryan of the Ryan family, and we built that up to a level where it's now owned by MasterCard. Because we developed a niche market. We spotted a niche market for the debit play with airlines. So, once I came on board of this company, the idea was to build it. COVID held us up, but it didn't stop us looking around to see where the potential prospects might be.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for
And now we're going to have a quick word
with David.
With David as well,
Yeah.
David Maresk.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, hi David Moretz, Strategic Advisor. Do you want to just talk us through the Armenia project and what it holds?
Sure. Well, the Armenian project has been in our portfolio for past 4 years. It's actually one of the few very interesting deposits which Armenia has, highly oxidized ore, roughly 251,000 ounces, which is close to 8 tons of gold, all in the high rank, about 4.7 grams per ton, and the cut-off rate is about 0.8. This is just many of the deposits which are in the area. I mean, as you know, the Armenia, it's a mineral-rich country, especially given the gold segment and copper, as well as molybdenum and silver, of course. By the way, the silver, it's around 20 grams per ton, and we calculated that, if we produce about 100,000 tons of ore and crush them and process them, that will lead to roughly 450 kilograms of gold per year, which brings us to our expected EBITDA next year about 6.5 million. So the stock is, from our point of view, really undervalued. But the mine actually itself has great potential to discover further, because we currently operate only on a small area of roughly 4 square kilometers, whereas the whole Karabert, it's roughly 21 square kilometers. And it's a producing asset right now. We are mining, or we've been mining for roughly a year and a half, almost close to 2 years, just for the old warehouse. We did process roughly 46 kilograms of gold in 2001 when the mine has been open for the first 6 months. But then we realized, rather than be selling the really expensive and dear ore to some vendors, rather just pile it up for the store warehouse. And then once our eco-leaching plant commences, then we will have substantial amount of resources to process. So yes, that's true that from the immediate cash flow point of view, it wasn't the right move, but it was the right move from the point of view that gold price is rising. As we see, we're close to records in all the currencies in the world: British pounds, obviously Czech crowns, US dollars, and surprisingly others, as well as euros, etc. So I think then a right move, although we have been kind of cash strapped for a couple of years, we believe that it's going to pay off handsomely, given the fact that we have roughly 40,000 tons of ore warehouse right now, with about 4.7, you're talking about 150 kilograms of gold. That's why I think that we can most likely next year even exceed the EBITDA which we are projecting, which are given, as a public information.
David,
yes.
what do you do yourself then, other than this particular project? What's your main
Actually,
game?
my main game is to help people to invest in good stuff, which is gold. Yeah. I've been a stockbroker on Wall Street for a while, and of course you learn how to lie, and how to lie professionally, which is good sometimes. But given the gold, it brings me to my sincere kind of a state of mind where I can sleep very well. I don't have even one client out of the 4,000 which we have in Prague who would be sad and unhappy that he purchased the gold, when the 1 kilogram of gold cost about 600,000 crowns, whereas now it costs about 1.5 million, and that's been only about 7-8 years ago. So what we do, we sell bullion in Czech Republic. Zlato CZ is like gold.com. We've been doing that service to clients for roughly 22 years, and we believe this is a sincere investment service.
And is that physical gold, literally,
of course,
like whether they're buying bars or Kruger ounce or
physical.
whatever?
No, we don't sell paper. All is physical.
Not ETF. Okay, so how are you finding the supply at the moment? Because I've heard that a lot of these
very
mint
difficult.
stocks, you can't get the coins.
It's actually, we are going back to the situation which has happened in the summer of 2020, when the COVID pandemic hit all over the world, when all the premiums skyrocketed up. There was no gold for sale, which was then followed by the fact that all the 4 major gold refineries, Valcambi, Pump, Metalor, and Argor Heraus, they shut down the refineries in Ticino, in Lugano area in South Switzerland, and there was no physical supply. Yeah. I've heard on the market, and we are well connected, as you know, with the CGM, the China National Geological Mining Corporation, that China has been buying quite a bit of physical gold.
Yeah.
And there is a huge discrepancy. I've been following the gold market for about 30 years. There's a huge discrepancy, whereas the gold price has gone up roughly 13% this year, whereas the ETFs, the paper gold, the derivatives on COMEX, have actually decreased by roughly 200 tons, which means that somebody's draining the COMEX. They're trying to get the gold simply because they have a right to get it, but on a free market it's extremely difficult. If you're a client of ours and you would like to buy, let's say 20 kilos of 1 kilo bars, forget it. You have a half year wait time. Yeah. Forget it. Nobody will sell it.
So people are now starting to see it is a real hedge. I mean, it's always been a hedge against inflation, but do you think they're starting to and do you think that the money and the realization will come into these junior miners like IMC, who are literally sitting on gold mines?
Sure. Well, the scarcity plays an important role, and junior miners are always late to the game. I think not only they are very correlated with silver. Look at the silver price. The peak was around 50 or 50 plus. Right now it's around 25. So you still have like 100% upside. Yeah. The same is for GDX. You look at the junior miners, it's the same stuff. I believe that most of the money is floating. It has been floating for a while, mainly to the royalty companies. As you see, Royal Gold, Franco-Nevada, they are doing tremendous positive cash flow, positive business. The majors are also quite attractive, but I think they are getting slightly more overvalued. Whereas the mid-tiers and the juniors, I think, have fantastic opportunity. But you know how it is. I mean, we say in Czech that it's better to hold a sparrow in your hand than to have a pigeon on the roof. And we believe that we are rather holding this small sparrow in the form of Carbbird and other two opportunities which we have than to be thinking about some big mines, because the big mines are gone. If somebody tells you it's a big mine, this is just big bullshit. There are no big mines, everything's been discovered. But I believe that rather than just be trying to pick some huge opportunity, go for the old ones, just go slow, focus on your top as well as bottom line, and mainly the bottom line. But I believe that the mining is going to be experiencing tremendous revival. I think there is a few commodity classes where you can park your money and sleep well, and gold is one of them.
And David, just as a last question, what is your role and ownership in IMC?
Well, IMC has been our acquisition target simply because this is a company with solid management, with solid story over past couple of almost 10 years, and mainly they have a current listing on the London Stock Exchange, which me working for major brokers on Wall Street in the 90s, I realized that being listed gives you a tremendous opportunity of freedom and the capital you can acquire, and you are not being rushed and you're not being thrown around by private bankers, etc. So it's I would say good funding mechanism, especially if we have a long-term view that a certain asset class will go up, and I'm 100% sure that the commodities have turned actually in the April of 2020. By the way, when oil has been trading at minus 40, that was the time when I believe was the bottom of the commodities, the long-term 40-year cycle. And another thing is actually the bond prices peaked right at that time, which is very interesting that when you look at the yield of the 10-year Treasury, it was actually yielding 0.35 in April of 2020. And that was the, I would say, end of the capitalism as we know, because I think that finally we are going back to the quite, I would say, sincere and frank, investments which are basically commodities, obviously stuff which is connected to hard assets, even real estate, and some of the stocks I believe can be here. Like BP is going to be here for a while.
And the US dollar as a currency has to devalue because it's just printed far too much.
Yes. However, I'm proponent of a story that the dollar going to die. It's going to be dying slowly. Look at British pounds. Over 100 years ago, UK, Great Britain had its reserve currency status. It evaporated. The British are not crying. I believe that the lively street in London are booming. Everything is okay. So by losing a reserve status doesn't mean that the country is going to collapse. But I see that the dollarization trend is quite visible from Eastern countries, the BRICS countries, etc. But the main point is the central banks, which used to be parking money into a dollar, are not parking money into a dollar. They are buying more and more of gold. And that's a tremendous, I would say, signal that something is happening. And I'm not talking like the usual India and Turkey and Russia banks. I'm talking banks like Czech Republic. Yeah, sure. Czech Republic had about 8 tons of gold in gold reserve. 8 tons, still about 5 years ago. Right now, they just bought, last year about 2.5 tons just in 1 year, and have over 20 tons. So I believe that everybody's coming to senses that parking your money in something tangible makes a lot of sense, and gold certainly, and junior miners per se, offer that.
Brilliant. David Marasek, Strategic Advisor of IMC Exploration. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, gentlemen.
And we've managed to catch up with Darren Hazelwood, CEO of Panther Metals. Great to see you, Darren. How are you finding the convention so far?
We've had a stunning week. on every single level. The information and what we've managed to strike this week it'll come out over the next few weeks, I'm sure, but people are understanding exactly where this business is, exactly where we're pivoting to, the stage that we're at, which is our first time at Mines and Money by design. The response has been extraordinary, and we've got evidence of the response. However, details are not forthcoming at this moment.
Very good.
So Darren, just tell us a bit about Panther Metals, what it's all about. I mean, from what you've said to me previously, the company is valued at 2.8 million pounds, and you have assets, or you own assets worth probably a couple of £1 million already outside of the assets that you own in Ontario. So just give us a view of what it's all about.
Well, look, we've stated that we're in the process of discovering the next mining district in Canada. That's a huge statement for a junior explorer, and it's actually reality. We've got access to capital via those holdings. We're also looking to use Dotted Lake and Manitou as potential triggers within the business as well. We're quite uniquely set in terms of our offers, and in fact, this week the industry clearly understands why we're saying that we're in the process of discovering the next mining district in Canada, because that's a huge statement, and in fact it shouldn't probably be allowed until you sit down with us, till you sit down with Leanne, you actually go through and you understand it. And frankly, London still doesn't get this, but it's as a result of some of the conversations this week and some of the interactions and the things that have happened since. We don't need to rely on London to do this, which is a shame, because London's going to potentially lose a true explorer that's out there to make discoveries and has made discoveries, but now we're just looking to build it out.
Okay, that's interesting. So if we lose you from London, what's going to happen? You're going to move to the Canadian Stock Exchange, or what do you think is likely to happen from Panther's point of view?
I think as the business develops, that's a natural place for us to potentially head to. However, the comment in the short term is more about the potential upside. You know, it's everybody's looking for winners in this sector. Everyone deserves the 30 to 50 times upside that comes with major discoveries, and we're uniquely positioned to genuinely say that we are on the cusp of doing that. And the capital inflow is coming from Canada because they understand. And it's my job to educate London, and hopefully through discussions with the likes of yourselves, that gives us another avenue to actually get that story out. Because I love London's my home, right? Yeah. And I want this to be in London, but we're almost being forced away due to the market, and that's criminal. But I have to do what's best for Panther Metals and best for our existing shareholders. We've worked hard to keep hold of the capital structure of this business. Everyone can see that, and now we're on the cusp. So we have to do what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it sounds very exciting, and what you've explained to us, which we can't really talk about in big detail in this short discussion, is very exciting. I mean, there is a huge potential for both copper and gold in Ontario, and you have the finances to do it as well, which is unlike a lot of explorers. So I think, I would suggest people should take a look at this, because there is potential for not just some upside now, but there's potential for this to be a huge upside event.
Darren Hazelwood, CEO of Panther Metals, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks.
So we're excited to be here with Mark Sale and James Knowles of First Class Metal. Welcome, gents.
Nice to be here with you, Phil.
Yeah, nice to see you, Phil.
Very good. So we're currently staring at this nice rock of spodumene. It's quite a fine example. Obviously, I'm not a geologist, but it looks pretty special to me. Do you want to just talk us through what we're looking at, Mark, please?
Yeah, it's a pegmatite, which is rich in spodumene, which is one of the main minerals that hosts lithium oxide. I mean, pure spodumene has up to 6% lithium oxide in it. Our best sample is shy of that, but we recently put out a press release, and we had a 5.5 metre cut channel sample that went 2.4% lithium oxide, including one section of it which went 2.5 metres at over 3% lithium oxide. So, and I rang the guys and said, guys, why was it only 5.5 meters long? And you got to remember they were hand stripping it. They were pulling back the vegetation. And they said, Mark, the tree roots just got too big after 5.5 meters. So I think the takeaway point from that is that it's open. And now we've got it permitted. We can get in there with an excavator and rip off the surface vegetation and the small trees and get some real long samples and join up. I mean, so far the outcrops are like little islands in our archipelago, but when we're doing the stripping, we will be able to get more continuity from it. But in the meantime, I think the stripping might have to wait till spring, and there might be another way of assessing the viability of the outcrops in more than one dimension.
So tell us just a little bit about this rock again. You've got, as you said, spodumene.
Yes.
If we just took the spodumene from this, how much lithium is in the spodumene? What percentage normally is associated with this?
Well, this is quite fresh, so it could be up to 6%. I mean, if you look at the chemical formula for spodumene, it could have 6. I think an absolute maximum might be just shy of 8% lithium in it. And a lot of the places that are mining hard rock lithium, they're doing what's called benefaction, is that they are taking out more of the spodumene and leaving the feldspar behind. So it's a more transportable commodity. And there is actually a processing plant being constructed only 10 kilometres away from our Zigzag project.
And this thing doesn't sort of come in sort of strikes, does it? How does it normally geologically appear?
A pegmatite is a little bit, shall we say, like a quartz vein, in that you have a fracture in the Earth's surface, and this fluid that forms the pegmatite enters into that structure. But of course, these structures aren't always binary, homogeneous. They can be twisted, and some openings might be wider than others. If you imagine you put an axe into a block of wood, it's not a straight cut like if you were cutting butter with a knife. The opening that the axe produces is twisty, and it's wider in places, and it goes off a bit here around a harder piece. So that's what pegmatites are. But then you've got to remember also that subsequent to that emplacement, you might have had other crustal activity which has caused them to be faulting. And in some instances, of course, you can have secondary pulses, which is why you might find that within a pegmatite there is metal zonation. What certain areas might be richer in spodumene and lithium than other areas. But what's also exciting us about the Zigzag pegmatite is it's also got tantalum in it, it's got rubidium in it, and it's got gallium in it. So it's not just the lithium, there's some credits, as they would call them.
So you've got to, I mean, this hard rock lithium is in serious demand in the world at this moment in time. So you've got to be having guys knocking on your door basically saying, we'd like a piece of this action, surely.
I think it's fair to say this rock we've got here has been the star of the show, really. Yeah. The amount of industry interest we've had from the client bookings we had on this Zigzag project itself has been immense, but the number of guys, geologists for big companies and so forth, have just been walking past, and they've been dragging their associates around to actually look at this piece, and it's certainly creating some interest. Yeah, you don't get a nicer looking piece of spodumene than that, and
no.
Yeah, I'm very happy.
So in this company, this is going to be the major event over the next period of time. As you progress this, as you drill it, as you take more samples, you're going to prove something up, I presume, from this.
There's no secret that we did a recent fundraise, and one of the motivations of that fundraise, or the justification was a modest drill program on the Zigzag project. And I've been saying all this field season that we wanted to bring certain projects to drill ready status with the intention of drilling one of them this season. The thing about Zigzag is that it's a 7-kilometre access, and there's a couple of little soft places along the access. I was up there last week, it was -14, and they're starting to go quite hard now. So it's becoming drill ready in a different facet, shall we say.
Indeed. And as you drill and get more results from this, you're going to get more and more interest. Someone's going to want to JV with you, I'm sure, and this is going to be a major event for the company.
Absolutely. And as James said, people have been cold calling us already saying, how much do you want? Can we joint venture it? But what I've said, I mean, from my grey hair, you can tell I've been in exploration a while. What I've said to James is we need to value add by drilling. We don't need to go crazy with the drilling, but we've got to give it that third dimension. There was some drilling historically, but only 4 short drill holes. But we want to do drilling along the area where we did the channel sampling. I mean, it's been mapped over 800 metres long, and we did channel samples only over 200 metres of it. We've got grab samples of plus 1% lithium oxide over 400 metres. So we will be drilling just a small snapshot of the potential, but it will underpin and validate the potential we believe is there. And of course open the door for further drilling by us or a joint venture partner.
Sounds very exciting. Thanks very much for your time, gents.
No, thanks.
Cheers,
for coming.
guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
So we're delighted to be joined by Mark Fairburn of Stockbox. Obviously, you'll recognise your voice in a minute. How are you finding it here at the Resourcing Tomorrow, Mark?
I think it's been a really good event. This is my second time here as Stockbox, and the vibe I'm picking up is gold and uranium. Those are the two hot commodities. And the vibe I also pick up is that people are saying that it's a big difference from last year. So whereas last year people were sort of keeping their wallets closed, not wanting to put money in the markets, there's definitely a change in vibe that I picked up from talking to people. I mean, okay, it's not absolutely rammed. It's definitely been busier in years gone by, and there are a couple of empty stands, but for the most part, I think some good deals been done. I talked with Darren Hazelwood. He said it's one of the best events he's been to. He said people here get mining. He's talking to the right people. So, I mean, encourages me for the sector in general. And I think given gold's over 2,000 ounces just recently, I think that's going to be a really hot commodity. And uranium, as I say, I mean, there's not many uranium opportunities in London. Forum Energy Metals are here. They're over in Canada. There's another uranium company. But yeah, I mean, that's doing
and lithium
so
as well, of course.
Lithium, yeah, I mean, all the green sort of battery metals, that kind of thing, are going to do well. So I think it's been a pretty good event. We've done a lot of interviews on Stockbox. Probably people have seen them go out. And it's been enjoying my time here.
Yeah, it's been great to see you do the interviews here, even just show clips from people of saying the different things. And yeah, I agree with you. I think the market is a changing. Things are starting to move, I think. And yes, gold is moving. Uranium, I mean, I think one of the plays for uranium is probably Power Metals in London because of, they're going to spin that out for sure in the next few months, literally. So, hopefully there's going to be some there. But we've spoken to CEOs here who are basically saying, they've done deals here. Yeah. So deals have actually happened. Last year, that didn't happen, I'm pretty sure. But this year, there's deals on the table that are going to be done for joint ventures and for different things to progress different things. I still think lithium's got a long way to go, especially the hard rock lithium resources, because those lithium resources in the likes of, we spoke to Panther Metals today, we've got Tyrian as well that we deal with, and we really think with the Rio Tinto joint venture that the hard rock lithium, big way to go, and those companies are going to do very well, I think, going forward.
Yeah. Well, this is definitely the show for the deals to be done. Mines and Money Connect in London early in the year is also where the deals are done, but certainly there are deals being done here. Another thing that I picked up from this year that's really big is the amount of governments here. The British government are here, the United States government are here, people from the EU Commission are here. You've got people
Saudis
here
as
from
well.
Saudis are here with Future Minerals Forum. You've got the Minister for Mines for Ontario is here. And a lot of the sort of other countries as well have got significant delegations here. I tried to get a word with the US delegation, but not successful there. But I did talk to some other important people, as well as Frank Justra as well. That was a nice interview I managed to grab. Very, very bullish on gold, that man is. But the governments really do want to support. They are worried about securing their supply chains of precious metals, and they're really doing all they can to secure those supply chains. And I'm telling you, they are here today looking to engage with companies directly. You take Gold and Metal Resources, for example.
Oliver,
Oliver's been around. They may close something with the US government soon. I mean, that would be great.
Brilliant,
if they could get funding for that.
We're about to have lunch with them in an hour.
With Oliver.
So yeah, but I mean, it is very interesting to see what's going on, and I think you're right. The governments really want to secure the resources away from China or away
especially
from
with the export ban put in place for predominantly a large number of the metals.
Yeah, the more politically things. But anyway, thanks very much for speaking.
Very nice to meet you both.
And I will
enjoy the rest of your day.
Carry on. And I will say, check out Stockbox and check out all the things that came out of the mining conference, because they've been very useful to listen to. So thank you very much for all your efforts.
Cheers. Okay, we're delighted to be joined by Vasilios Karellis, Non-Executive Director of Firering Resources. Do you want to talk us through some of the assets, please, Vasilios?
Yeah, sure. Firering started off with a lithium project here in Côte d'Ivoire, where we've carried out some drilling last year. We've got some significant intersections, have entered into a JV with Rika Resources, who are going to be funding the project to the tune of $18.6 million to earn to 50% of the project, taking that through to DFS. We're about to commence with the second round of drilling in the beginning of next year. And, we've defined pegmatites within our license area now that are striking over 5 kilometers. And it looks like potentially there could be a lot more. So, still early days, but it's an encouraging start.
Very good. So, this hard rock lithium, I've banged on about it with a few people even today, but the hard rock lithium really is in demand. And are you finding that the joint venture is being productive for you?
It is, yeah, for sure. The team behind Rika, who are our joint venture partner, are the same team that are basically behind Atlantic Lithium. So they bring a wealth of expertise to lithium space. And when you see that the technical people are getting excited and want to work on your project, you know
geologists getting excited.
Well, doesn't happen often.
So that's right. So when the guys are really keen to work on your project, it sends the right signals, right? And that's why we're quite excited about the next drill campaign.
Okay, and what other projects or cash generative things do you think are available within the company?
Yeah, we've recently signed an option to acquire an interest in a lithium lime plant in Zambia. It's a plant it's an ex-Glencore plant, which they operated briefly for a few months before they pulled out of country. It's fully permitted, it's been constructed, it's got a resource. We've basically started the first phase of getting the crushing section optimized, which we have just completed. That's fairly operational now, and we're now in the process of converting the kilns and then beginning to commission those kilns. So it's a $100 million investment by Glencore, where for a project which we're basically getting in at a valuation of about $17 million.
Wow! And for all those listening, it's not lemon and lime. It's lime. So what is the purpose of the lime? Why does Zambia need lime?
Well, Glencore would have constructed the lime plant for their process, their mines up in Zambia at the time. So lime is a critical constituent or additive which they put into the flotation circuits, which primarily used as a flotation agent, but also used as a settling agent as well as for controlling the pH of the float. In addition, interestingly, lime is also used in the processing of lithium brines, and so it's critical for they use that to precipitate the magnesium out of the lithium brines to sort of purify that as well. And then there's higher spec products that go into the fertilizer industry and other industries as well. So, the numbers, the numbers are provisional, but we're still working on them and doing the technical work. But it looks like this could be producing, generate free cash flow around about $10 to $15 million a year once in full production.
Very good. And the fertilizer side of things, do you need to upgrade the lime in any way to start using it in that way?
Yeah, look, that to be honest is a space we haven't really looked at yet. At the moment, interestingly enough, Glencore have sort of whispered to us that they would like to, get an offtake for their projects in the DRC. So, there's actually a lot of demand within country. There's a nickel mine not too far away. There's other operators in the area that are interested in taking up the products. At the moment, the focus is purely for the mines. But once we're fully operational, then we definitely look to see if we can, produce.
So the product is used for all metals. It's not necessarily copper. It can be nickel. It can be.
It's used on gold mines. It's where you need pH control. So
okay.
Lime is basically controls the acidity. So on gold mines, for example, if you don't control the pH, those tanks that have got the cyanide in, if they get too acidic, the cyanide turns into gas. So
you don't want that.
You don't want that.
No.
Well, you don't want to be smelling it, because if you smell it,
we've seen it in operation at Zambia at some of the concentrators at Rowan, etc. So it's very interesting.
So it's a commercial product that's used throughout the industry. And if you look at some of the deals that have been done recently, this week I think Sigma Rock announced that reverse takeover, $1.2 billion of aggregate and lime business. A whole lot of licenses and projects in Europe. Sir McDavis has Blue Alpha Ventures. They've recently invested in not even constructed yet, and probably similar capacity to what we have, project in Papua New Guinea, and they've I think it's $40 million for a 50% interest in that. So
this is going to be a game changer in terms of creating revenue for
that's right.
the company.
It's quite opportunistic. It's something which it came to us in a roundabout way, and the more we look at it, the more we're beginning to like it.
Very good. Yeah, I'm starting to like these mining companies that have the ability to have some revenue while they explore another asset. The one where we visited Rwanda is similar. They're going to have trading arm and try and create £1 to £2 million a year, and then subsequently be able to help fund the other project, which is also lithium as well. So that's Ethereum. But yeah, I really like this because I really think it de-risks the company completely. If you have another source of income from something that's already producing. So
the nice thing is debt free.
Very good. Vasilios, we'll say thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
And here we are. You can hear we're stood by the busy road in Islington. We're joined by Oliver Friesen, CEO of Golden Metal Resources. Just had some lunch together. Very nice. How are you doing, Oliver?
Yeah, doing great. It's great to meet you guys face to face. We've been working together for a few months and doing some good work, but obviously face to face is always
face to chest, really, because we just realised he's a giant.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 6'3", and it's not often I have to strain my neck and look up, but Oliver's, tall guy.
Indeed. So tell us what's been happening. When's the £100 million arriving from the US government? Dollars.
It's the $1 million question right now. Almost every day now, it seems that there's new news coming out of the Biden administration. Their support of domestic projects is at an all-time high. So the timing is perfect. We put all the right people in place to make sure that we can put our best foot forward. So we hopefully will continue to have positive conversations, and hopefully we can put some news out soon. But in the meantime, gold price is over $2,000. It looks like it's pretty firm above there. We have Gold Conda Summit permitted, ready to go. Garfield will have results out soon. So lots going on here, and I think the market's feeling a lot better. And I think going into 2024, it's buoyant at the conference here, so I'm feeling quite optimistic.
Great. I can't disagree with anything you've said. I think you're set up brilliantly, I think, with many opportunities, I think, to have a catalyst for Golden Metals to grow. And let's see what 2024 brings, but pretty sure it's going to bring a higher share price.
I completely agree, and I think the main thing here, another thing just to consider, is the fact that our share structure, our cap structure is probably one of the best in the game. We have very supportive large shareholders, which means on the back of any good news, I think we could really do well here. So it should be a good rest of 2023 and beyond.
Brilliant. Yep. We'll catch up next week, hopefully.
Let's do it. Sounds good.
Well, that's it. That's a wrap. Another year done.
Yeah, it's been very interesting. There is a bit of a momentum, I think, in the mining sector coming along. There are lots of governments, companies interested in all sorts of metals, I think, and resources in general. So, yeah, it's very, very interesting. I think we're moving into a period where the true value of these things is going to start to come to pass. So, yeah, hold your positions, I think, and add if you have the opportunity in terms of all of these resources going forward for 24, 25, 26. I think we're going to go to a bull run of resource stocks. I can't see any other result, to be honest, because they're so lowly valued. What do you think, Phil?
Absolutely. It's good to see quite a few mining companies, and not just, I'd say a majority of these are not UK listed companies. You see them on the Australian Stock Exchange, the Frankfurt, TSX listed. So there's a real mix, isn't there? It's not just UK companies.
Yeah, and the resources are all over the world, literally. So yeah, interesting times ahead.
Okay, well, I hope you all enjoyed that. It was certainly a memorable show, and I hope that from the audio you kind of got the feeling of the excitement, the buzz around the place. We certainly we talked to a lot of people. There was a lot of excitement around the sector, and as Kev alluded to at the end there, it sounded like some deals have been done or were certainly being broken in the background. We also caught up with Sapan as well, Sapan Guy from Sovereign Metals, and had a good chat with him. So, I mean, what are your thoughts? What did you come away with from the show? What was the message you took away from the show?
I came away with the word movement. I think everything is starting to move. There is so many assets out there that are not only undervalued, but are worthwhile progressing. That, bigger companies, majors are coming in and starting to want to be involved in these things, whether it be copper, whether it be lithium, whether it be gold. There was a big gold buzz around the place. I think people are confident that gold is going to have another good year next year. And many people talking about $2,500 an ounce plus. And yeah, we met some very interesting companies. Yeah, good conversation with Sapan, as you said, in terms of what they're doing. And, they're looking for other companies and other opportunities as well. So, from his perspective, he's looking from that. It was great to meet Oliver from GMET as well. Yeah, much bigger man than I expected to meet, I have to say. 6'7", and a gentleman or giant gentleman or gentleman giant, whichever one you look at it. He is very up for making sure that GMET achieves its objectives. So this one is very interesting. The one I think I came away with a lot of interest in my own mind was the IMC, is it?
Yeah.
And the Ireland and the Armenia thing. So that one was very interesting. I didn't know anything about that before I spoke to them, and it was a bit of an eye-opener. They've obviously had a good run, but nowhere near the asset value of what they've got there in the gold. And also the thing in Ireland, in Wicklow, I think it was, Abaco, looks like a no-brainer, basically. They're going to get grants galore to sort out the ecological problem. And the upshot will be they'll get a lot of metal out of it. And the other one that stood out for me was Panther Metals as well. I thought that again was very, very interesting. And I think they're talking about a whole district of copper there in terms of, or not just copper and gold in there. What did they call it? A green belt or a green stone belt? A whole area. And there are many, many mines all around, dotted around that area that are based on this type of geological structure. So, yeah, no, it was fascinating. The whole thing was fascinating. And, we also got the first-class metal guys who, had a huge block of lithium in front of them. And the interesting thing is, if you remember when we were in Rwanda, we saw, if you like, the washed-out version of that rock. And then, we saw the actual rock there that would contain the lithium, whereas the stuff in Rwanda on the outcrops on the top of the hill had been washed down and into the bedrock. So, yeah, fascinating. And yeah, it was very good. There was a good buzz about it. Even though we were there on Thursday, and I think the Thursday was the quietest day, I still came away thinking there's a lot of movement to happen in a lot of things in this area.
Good. All right, well, let's move on to some of the movers and shakers this week. Starting with the best mover, or the biggest mover, was Fusion Antibodies, FAB. They were up about 120% at one point, but I think they finished the week around the 80 to 90%. Basically, they entered into a collaboration agreement with the National Cancer Institute to use their Optimal for novel antibody discovery. The collaboration focused on cancer and SARS-CoV-2 targets, involves NCI using optimal technology and retaining any identified antibodies. The partnership allows Fusion to progress Optimal without major resource commitment. Fusion CEO Adrian Kincaid and CSO Richard Buick expressed enthusiasm for NCI's expertise in validating and deploying the technology. So certainly looks like a good collaboration there with the National Cancer Institute, and it's obviously piqued a lot of interest in investors. So it's good to see that one finally moving, because if you remember that, it was earlier in the year, didn't it? They were up around the sort of 50-60p mark, and they did a placing at something like 80% discount at the sort of 5-6 pence mark or something around that. But it certainly had a massive drop in value.
Yeah, I mean, it's great news. It really is great news. But the actual increase in the share price is sort of, if you're on the floor, basically they've got to one knee so far.
Yeah.
So I think if the contracts start to come, it's in play. It should be a good one, I think.
Yeah.
It's in Northern Ireland based, I think, in Belfast. Fusion Antibodies.
Yeah, all good on that one. It's good to see them moving. So EEE, Triple E, Empire Metals, and this is one that actually Sapan mentioned to us, didn't he, while we were there. Basically, it's 55% up on the week. Second best mover on the market. They reported the highest grade drilling results to date at the Pitfield project in Western Australia, which confirmed a significant high-grade titanium mineralization. Includes thick bedded intervals of TiO2 across a 30-kilometer mineral system, reaching depths of 350 meters. The drilling program, consisting of diamond and reverse circulation holes, is ongoing, aiming to further explore and understand the high-grade TiO2 zones. Managing Director Sean Bunn emphasises or emphasised the strategic global significance of these findings for titanium mineralisation at Pitfield. So again, not actual rutile, but titanium dioxide in rock form. But actually, when you look at if you look at what the rutile, which is a much more pliable type, you can blast it with water that Sovereign Metals have got, which can be hydromined. It's much, much higher grade, isn't it? The rutile that Sovereign have got.
Yeah, I mean, Zappan was explaining this to us, and I got it straight away. If you've got titanium in hard rock, how the hell do you get it out?
Yeah.
No matter whether the grade in percentage terms is higher, it's going to be very, very difficult to get out and very costly to get out. So I think his explanation to us was, it's the same definition of saying, do you want a piece of coal or do you want a diamond?
Yeah.
Okay. And Sovereign Metal basically has diamonds, and EEE looks like it has coal. I'm not saying it's not there and the titanium's not there, but it's a completely different geological situation than Sovereign, which has the biggest rutile deposit in the entire world in Malawi. So yeah, it's interesting and it's good news, obviously, and I hope for EE shareholders it all comes good, but it's not as simplistic as been explained, I think.
So next one, Greatland Gold. Obviously, we've had Sean on quite a few times, and they continue their very good run. They announced promising results from surface sampling at the Panorama project in Western Australia, which showed significant nickel prospectivity. Key findings include soil samples with over 0.1% nickel along a 1.4 kilometre strike and a peak of 0.3% nickel in a rock chip sample. The results from the Dalton Suite Ultramafics indicate potential for primary nickel sulfide. So he expressed confidence in the possibility of a major nickel discovery and plans further exploration to test the identified anomalies. And obviously they also announced drilling commenced at the 100% owned Ernest Gel. So great to see Greatland back into the sort of 11, 12p mark and building back up the market.
It's basically doubled its market cap, hasn't it? I mean, in the last 6 to 8 weeks, which it just shows how ridiculously undervalued it was, really.
And obviously got the value of the price of gold has also helped as well.
We're talking 570 to 600 million pound market cap now. So it's added somewhere in the region of 250 to 300 million pounds to its market capitalization in the last 6 to 8 weeks. So basically, Greatland Gold has started, in my view, this pre-Santa rally. So it's been the Santa rally is coming, I'm pretty sure, in terms of the way the market is. We also, when we were in London, we were speaking to a few of the brokers, and the IPOs are starting to come again. And this is a sure sign then that the risk reward is now moving towards risk as opposed to, penalty of different things. So I think 2024 is going to get us started. And then I think 2025, 2026, we're going to have a heated market in terms of definitely the resource sector plays. In my view, I don't think there's any shadow of a doubt, and all the boats will rise, I think, in terms of the share prices. But hopefully you've got a speedboat as opposed to a tanker. That's basically what we're looking for.
Okay, then we also saw on Thursday, Chill Brands received approval from the FCA to publish the prospectus, enabling the issue and admission of circa 154 million shares to the LSE's main market. The results from the conversion of loan notes issued in April and June 2022. The prospectus details a potential admission of up to 19 million more shares from warrant exercises, expected admission on the 5th of December, bringing the total shares outstanding to 442 million. So we also addressed an overdue interest payments on CLNs or on CLN with arrangements made for payment, including default interest. So what do you make of that one now that the news is out?
Well, it's the history has happened, hasn't it? I mean, basically they had to raise this money at 2p, otherwise Chill Brands was going to the wall, a year and a half ago. And the company is a completely different place than it was a year and a half ago. We've seen the share price react because we think that, a lot of people have shorted it and a lot of people think, that all of these shares are going to come onto the market. But I think there's just too much about to happen. And already has happened in terms of the availability. I mean, I have spoken to Callum, and I think he will be coming on sometime next week or in the not too distant future. The sales numbers are going up. the number of shops are going up that it's in. The connections are going up. It's going to go into W.H. Smith's travels things very shortly. And they're working on many, many deals as well as this, which hopefully he'll be able to fill us in a bit more next week. It dipped drastically, obviously, on the news. Went down into the 2s, but I think that's basically the low end, to be honest, because we saw on Friday that it recovered back to 3.5 or more, which fully diluted now at, say, 450 million shares, puts it at a market cap at 4p of around £18 million. When you're talking about the amount of money that can be made from these vapes over the next period of time, I think it's looking very, very, very cheap in my view. And yes, I am a shareholder. Yes, I am a big advocate of it. But I can see both from chill.com, the spread of the vapes, that this is going to be something that will produce a lot of profit and a lot of cash flow. So now, if you have been sitting on the sidelines, might be a great time to invest, because I think there's only upside to come, really. What else is there to be downside? The share price today is valued based on not even what's in the market. So yeah, that's my opinion.
Good. Okay. Well, let's. I think now, as you say, the market needs to see how many vapes have been sold. What are the? I'm not saying we're going to see the actual profits, but obviously we will eventually see that in the results. But yeah, actually, let's get the numbers out and see how many are actually being sold out there, and what are the reorders like, with that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, there is reorders coming. I know that for a fact, having had discussions with Callum, I don't think that's market sensitive information. I mean, he didn't tell me numbers, but the shops are reordering. So the vapes are selling. I mean, there are 5 million vapes a week in the United Kingdom going into landfill. Yeah, 5 million. Just think about that. 5 million vapes a week. So if you're selling 5 million vapes a week in the UK as a total, that's how many in the year? 250 million? Now, for Chill to be successful, they probably need 1 to 1.5% of that market maximum, and then they become a successful brand and something that will move. And I also think the non-nicotine side of things is going to be a real buzz going forward, that people will be, I want to get off the nicotine, both to help me stop smoking and to get off the nicotine vapes themselves. And I think it's going to be a real boon. And also, the flavors are good. Even if I haven't tried them myself, the flavors are good.
All right, let's move on to the next one. So one that we've been waiting on, the market has been waiting on. I know there's a lot of people who've messaged us saying, not what's going on, but, is it likely to the news announced? Is it delays? What's happening? We don't know what's happening. Obviously, the market has announced on Friday morning, Mast Energy Developments announced that ProVenture has failed to meet its obligations under the joint venture agreement by not making the required payments totaling about 5.9 million by the deadline. Mast Energy Developments issued a formal notice to ProVenture, giving them 7 days to remedy the situation. Failure to comply could lead to the termination of the JVA and potential legal action by MED. ProVenture has already incurred penalties due to late payments. Meanwhile, MED is exploring alternative funding options, including discussions with another institutional investor, and has put its Piebridge 9-megawatt asset into care and maintenance pending overhaul work, contingent on securing necessary funding. CEO Peter Krugel expressed disappointment in ProVenture's non-compliance, but remains cautiously optimistic about a resolution. So frustration for holders. I mean, it looked like a great joint venture, but clearly there's things happening there that ProVenture, I don't know, they're not playing ball. What do you make of it?
I've never seen a set of more unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah.
The first joint venture the joint venture initially was supposed to be signed by the Indian investor. And then he was in a tragic car accident, which basically nearly killed him. And he was unable to continue. And then he was replaced by another one of his associates. And then the things got over the line. And from what I can understand, the Indian government is having major tie-ups to release capital from India. So I'm not sure this is a lack of willingness, because why the hell would they have signed it in the first place if there was a lack of willingness? I feel like the the willingness is there, but there obviously are some issues. But I don't think those issues are on the MED end. I think they're on the end of the joint venture. And there will be some recompense here, even if this doesn't happen. I mean, this is in the joint venture now. Maybe that has to go to court or whatever. But there's a 5% payment of the total amount, and I think the total amount is not 5.9 million. It's 34 million or whatever. The total joint venture is. So it's very, very annoying. Because once Mast gets cash and is able to move forward, this is a good business. So, we have to wait and see.
Yeah.
I don't think we can do anything else.
We've not had any comms with Peter, have we, since that? I think that was about, a month ago when he mentioned that obviously the guy was still very ill. The original guy, as you mentioned, who was in this tragic car accident, was still very much in a critical condition.
I haven't had any comms with Peter since... he basically said this new joint venture was done, and then we were waiting for the money. So hopefully we're going to have some comms with them next week. There is a scheduled meeting. So let's see. Let's see what happens this week. Let's hope we get some news.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Another good mover this week was BSF Enterprise. BSFA is the ticker. There was an RNS on Thursday, a TR1 holding RNS, stating that Miles McNulty had been buying. Miles is pretty prevalent on Twitter. He's sort of a high net worth private investor, retail investor, and he sort of gets behind quite a lot of shares. So it's good to see someone building. I mean, you could see the volume increasing as he was buying along on the sort of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, couldn't you? And the share price rose sort of, I think it was about 30-40% up. It's was about moved into the 12-13 pence mark, in that region. I think it finished on Friday around the 11, but it certainly went up into the 12s, which was good to see. So 22% up on the week, good to see.
Yeah, absolutely good to see. And I think I said earlier on in the podcast as well, I mean, a lot of potential in this company, from the point of view of the all the different options, whether it be the meat, the leather, the corneas, the cosmetics that they were talking about now, and also the sale and the revenue from the city mix. I think all in all, you've got a company that really could be worth many, many, many multiples of what it's worth now. And obviously there's risk, and that's why it's where it is now, I suppose. But I think from the point of view that they raised at 17p, they have a lot of cash in the bank for the next probably 12 to 24 months, depending on what and how it's spent. Yeah, I think it's looking good.
Yeah. So there's two articles, and they kind of interlink to what you mentioned earlier about this Santa rally, and they've actually been mentioned as Santa rallies. The first one was, and this is interesting because it could cause that kind of rally, the people are being encouraged to buy shares. The government plans further measures to encourage people to buy shares in an effort to boost economic growth and help convince companies to list in London rather than the US. Bim Afalami, the Financial Services Minister, said his priority was to deliver on reforms already outlined by the government, ensure regulators meet their competitiveness objectives, and promote ownership. Last week, Britain said it would explore offering shares to the public to help it offload its 39% stake in the NatWest Bank. That's the British government. We're going to do more in the budget in the spring to focus on promoting ownership, Mr. Afalami said. I'm very passionate about this, particularly for younger people. So what do you make of this? Obviously they want to try and get people investing, bring them back to the market and encourage people to, it helps grow the economy. So, what are your thoughts on the ways that they can do that?
I think every other government, favors itself as in its own economy, but we don't. I mean, for instance, in an individual savings account, an ISA, if you go for stocks and shares ISA, you can invest in it wherever you want. There should be a minimum 10, 15, 20% investment in UK listed stocks and shares. Now, how much money would have to come back into the UK market that is already UK money tomorrow if they did that? There would be billions of pounds put straight back into the UK market, into UK businesses that would hopefully then improve our own economy. Why don't we do it? Most economies do it. If there's tax incentives, there's a little hitch there.
Yeah.
If you had to have 25%, for the sake of argument, a quarter of your assets in UK equities, this would be a big boon to the market. And it would also mean that the fund managers, offering an ISA type investment would have to offer a 25% shareholding in UK equities, in their managed funds, in their bond funds, etc., etc., etc. So the kick on from that would be that we'd have a market that would actually really value stocks.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in the US, so this is interesting how it ties in. There's been a rally. You see the S&P up, you see the Dow. So investors are increasingly confident that the major central banks, especially the Fed, are nearing the end of their battle with inflation, prompting a significant rally in global stocks. This optimism is based on the expectation that interest rates in the US and Eurozone have peaked and could be cut in early 2024. As a result, MSCI's Global Equities Index has risen almost 9% this month, marking the best performance since November 2020. This sentiment is also reflected in lower yields on junk-rated debt and a decrease in the VIX Volatility Index, signaling growing investor optimism. So that was great news out of the US. And also, did you see that Robinhood are trying to come into the UK now? I think I sent you a link. Did you see the video?
Yeah.
Which is going to add more liquidity, right, if they get Robinhood away?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you look at the 1 year VIX, which we've mentioned a few times on the podcast before, basically it's just a quotation of volatility in terms of how much things can go up and down. It's reached sort of just under 13, which is a low that it has reached 3 times now over the last number of months. But if we went back a year, it was almost double that. And at one point, it's almost been treble that in terms of its valuation. So we are coming into a time, I think, where people are going to look at this risk-reward situation and start to, I think, say, the benefit of me investing is probably greater than the risk that I can have. And there is no better place than the UK smaller cap markets at the minute, because there is so much value in so many of the stocks, because they've been beaten down historically worse than nearly anybody has ever seen. I mean, when we were speaking to the brokers on Wednesday, they said they've been in the market 30 years or 20, 25 years, and they said never experienced anything like this, ever.
I'm just looking at the fear greed index, which is another kind of way of the emotions that are driving the market now on CNN. And it's saying we're at 67, which is just into sort of in the middle of greed. You've got extreme fear, neutral greed, and extreme greed. And we're sort of like in the green, in the midway in the greed. And the S&P and its 125-day moving average is at like extreme greed, but the overall is it's with all the different markets, because they take a stock price strength and then they take it. So it's good to see it actually moved into the middle of the greed now.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably argue that the UK market is maybe 20 points behind that.
But it's funny because if you look at the historic, 1 year ago it was extreme greed. Okay, a month ago it was in the fear, and the previous quote it was greed. So 1 week. So we've moved from fear into neutral and now into greed. So it is showing that in the last month we've kind of pivoted from fear through neutral into greed.
Yeah, and as you said, the market will go through those phases, and I don't think it's going to be a quick thing. I think we're going to have an extended period of time. After a bear, a bull comes. It's not rocket science in terms of that. So the bull will come, but I think the bull will come nice and steadily and slowly initially, and then I think it's going to build. And I think 2024 is the bull returning, and I think 2025 and 2026, certainly in the resource sector and in many of the other sectors, technology sector especially, I think we're going to see some crazy valuations again.
Another one that's moved pretty well over the last 5 to 7 days is Acuity Risk Management. It appears to have been oversold from the 10p region, and it looks like maybe there's a recovery play in progress. So I think the last RNS was the contract win announced worth 388,000 with an option to extend for a fourth year for a further 125,000, and then in between that there's been a few smaller ones like in the 75,000, 85,000, which came under a bit of bit of criticism from some of the shareholders saying that, why would you RNS something that size? And obviously Charles was on last week, Charles Archer, who went through that and saying you've got to do those ones because generally they lead on to bigger things. So in one of the RNSs, they said that following this contract win, there are likely to be further opportunities in this and other government departments. Obviously, that was based on the government department win. So what are your thoughts on the way it's moving and the recovery we're seeing?
Yeah, I think you've said it all. It was oversold, and for the valuation, or the valuation based on the revenue that it's producing is very low, especially in this tech market. As and when it gets more contracts, which I think is undoubtedly it's going to get, because a lot of these government type things and big companies, once it's rolled out in small format in one section of the company, then it starts to move throughout, and the same in government departments. Very, very high margin of profitability and very, very high margin of people continuing after the end of the contract to renew and carry on with the system. And all of these risks have to be covered. The cost of them doing it is much less than the cost of them having a big problem with their security. So I think it's an inevitability that this will get traction.
Yeah. I think
so we'll see what happens over the next few weeks, but it's moved up.
Looking at the way it's been trading on Friday, I think a lot of this is held off book, about 65% of it. So it's quite hard to get the stock. But I mean, it moved. We're just looking at some of the trades now, and it moved up to like 5.345. So it's moving. It moved well on Friday, and it seems quite difficult to get it. There's not a massive amount of shares outstanding. It's like about 121 million shares outstanding, market cap of 6 million. And as you say, if they can scale this up, I think you said it last week, if you can scale this up at any size and start delivering the bigger contracts, then it's only a matter of time before they become very profitable.
Yeah, and I think it has the potential to be a 30, 40, 50, 60 pence stock if it scales it up. Sort of a lot of people have been given it sort of the Ondo analysis, and I think it has definitely got that potential. The difference being is now Ondo is heavily weighted now with a huge number of warrants. So yeah, we will see. Let's see what happens over the coming weeks. I mean, if there are more contracts to come out, then I think we're going to see another rate back up to probably the highs, I would imagine.
Yeah. And then what about Prospects Energy as well? What's going on there?
Well, they're making money, aren't they?
Yeah.
I don't think you can say any more than that. And I mean, this is making money on one situation when they've got the ability then to tap in and take gas from 4 other selected areas. I think all in the same scenario. So I don't see anything but upside. I mean, we've had a high of, it was close to 20p, wasn't it? And we're down, in the 6s, I think, at the minute. So, is there upside on this? I don't think there's any doubt. There's got to be good upside on it, and I think it's going to be a steady one. But I think over the next period of time, we should see, a good result.
Yeah. There was an interesting, I don't know how it'll affect Prospects in terms of, let's say, ease of doing business in Italy, but there was an RNS from Rebold Resources a couple of days ago, which basically talked about the Italian government decree on the energy sector, and they have 60 days to ratify it in a definitive law. But it basically, I think they were just saying that it's all to do with the tax cash flow. Let me just bring up the RNS and see how it kind of, basically it's saying that the Italian government has approved a decree to boost the country's renewable energy production and energy security at the meeting of the Council of Ministers, which was held on the 27th of November. The decree provides incentives to build plants for energy production from renewable sources such as the liquefaction of natural gas, the release of new licenses for the exploitation of gas fields aimed at providing gas to industries with high gas consumption at competitive prices, incentives for LNG terminals, and incentives for carbon dioxide storage programs. The decree is already in force, and Italy's parliament has 60 days to ratify it into a definitive law. So obviously for Rebold, they held like 18% in interest in LNE, whose primary asset is an exclusive option over a 90% interest. So it looks like it's it's doing the right things there in terms of these decrees on, and basically boosting the country's renewable energy production. can only be a good thing for prospects.
Yeah, I mean, it has a fair wind, and I think there's only going to be, more requirement for the gas. I still think we're coming into a winter as well, and we're gonna have higher gas prices. We've seen that the gas prices going forward are at the very least steady and probably increasing for 2024. But the real upside here is the fact that they can expand production probably 2, 3, 4 times over.
Yeah.
And if they do that, then it just becomes a cash machine. And that's ultimately without their other assets as well in Spain. So yeah, I like the look of it.
Okay, I think we've talked long enough. We've gone on over the hour, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Coming to you live from the, or not live, but certainly coming to you from the convention at the Resourcing tomorrow, and hopefully it give you a feeling almost of being there and listening to the buzz and listening to all the different CEOs and geologists that we talked to. And if you like what you've heard, please hit the subscribe icon and also the bell icon as well, so that you get updates on the next podcast.
Yeah, and just as a final thank you, we'd like to thank Money and Mines for allowing us to come on Thursday.
Yeah, Andrew
Fake, it was much appreciated, and we really enjoyed our time. We did try and catch up with you there, but we didn't manage to grab you, so we will hopefully touch base. We're going to be talking to them, I think, over the next few weeks as well, just to give you an update of what type of things that they're doing to try and help the companies and help the market in general. So yeah, thank you very much.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.